Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're jumping right into a fascinating historical and literary mystery that's literally hidden in plain sight. Same event, different records. Why does the Bible record King Asa's story twice, differently? You see, if you read the accounts of the ancient kings, you'll start to notice something kind of peculiar about King Asa of Judah. His story pops up twice, once in 1 Kings chapter 15, and then again in 2 Chronicles chapters 14 through 16. Same exact king, same era, same historical events. But here's the catch. The records are not identical. 1 Kings mentions things that 2 Chronicles just completely ignores, and 2 Chronicles includes these incredibly profound details that 1 Kings leaves out entirely. So, you might be wondering, why on earth would the same historical event be recorded so differently? Is it some sort of contradiction? Well, not at all. It's actually entirely about the purpose behind the writing.
Spiritual reform, the story of King Asa. Today we're unpacking this theme of spiritual reform through the very specific lens of 2 Chronicles chapter 14. We're going to explore where true reform actually starts, how it deepens, and the absolutely incredible fruit it bears. Sure, it's a story about ancient kings, but the mechanics of this spiritual reform, they are incredibly relevant to any of us looking to reset our own life's direction today.
And understanding the audience brilliantly illustrates exactly why we have these two different accounts. 1 Kings was written for exiles to explain why we failed, whereas 2 Chronicles was written for returnees to inspire hope and starting over. The two books just had completely different target audiences. Think about it. 1 Kings was written for people who had just watched their entire nation collapse before being dragged off into exile. It acts as a stark historical autopsy, answering that agonizing question, why did we fail? It points out all the flaws. But 2 Chronicles? That was written for the returnees. These were people coming back from exile to a totally ruined land. They didn't have a king like David anymore, no glorious temple like Solomon's, no army, and their walls were shattered. Some had even forgotten their ancestral language. They didn't need to be beaten down with their past failures. They desperately needed hope. 2 Chronicles was written to say, hey, you can start over. And that is exactly why Chronicles focuses so heavily on King Asa's heart, his passionate pursuit of God, and the miraculous peace he experienced. It was meant to inspire a ruined people to get up and rebuild.
The first step of reform, tearing down. When King Asa takes the throne, he initiates this massive spiritual reform. But his very first action is highly unintuitive.
Usually when we hear the word reform, our minds jump to creating something brand new, right? Passing a new law or building a new system. But true reform doesn't start with building, it starts with demolition. He removed foreign altars, removed high places, smashed sacred pillars, and cut down Asherah poles. What's truly fascinating here is the sheer scale of what Asa dismantled. He didn't build anything first. Keep in mind, these idols didn't just pop up overnight. They had been deeply normalized in Judah, passed down from his grandfather Rehoboam right through his father Abijah. These were familiar, multi-generational habits, but Asa tore them down anyway. Because reform is really about letting go of what needs to be discarded before you can ever even begin to build.
God cannot enter a space occupied by idols. This is a profound theological reality. The throne of the human heart literally only has room for one. As long as familiar idols, comfortable habits, or worldly priorities are sitting on that throne, God cannot be the king of that life. Asa knew for a fact that the prerequisite for God's presence wasn't just adding another shiny religious ritual on top of the old ones, it was clearing the room entirely. Asa did what was good and right in the eyes of the Lord his God. 2 Chronicles gives us the raw motivation behind this drastic action. Before the action, there was a direction. Tearing down the high places where people were super comfortable worshiping was frankly politically risky. It meant upsetting the entire status quo and facing the complaints of citizens who were perfectly fine with their old ways. But Asa wasn't asking, what's going to make me popular in the eyes of the people? His only metric was, who am I standing before right now? His scale tipped entirely toward the gaze of God. And once your direction is set on pleasing God's eyes, what you need to throw away naturally becomes very, very obvious.
The core methodology, darash. So after clearing the land of idols, Asa didn't just leave a vacuum.
He issued a crucial command to his people, introducing the core methodology of this whole spiritual reform. He told them to seek the Lord first and obey his laws and commands second. Notice that sequence. It's absolutely vital. He didn't just hand them a giant rule book and say, all right, behave.
The relationship and the earnest seeking absolutely must precede the following of the rules.
And this brings us to a really fascinating linguistic deep dive. Darash. It means to seek earnestly with all one's heart, a continuous direction of life, not a one-time religious act. This is the Hebrew word used here for seek. We're not talking about casually looking around for your misplaced car keys. Darash means to seek desperately with everything you've got. It's not a religious box you just check off on the weekend. It's a continuous direction of your entire life. Think of a deer panting for water because it will literally die of thirst without it. That is Darash. In fact, this single word is the ultimate standard the Book of Chronicles uses to evaluate its kings. It doesn't judge a king by how many epic battles he won or how massive his monuments were. The single passing or failing grade was simply, did this king Darash? Did he seek God?
When peace is given. Because Judah, led by King Asa, actively chose to seek God and tear down their idols, something remarkable happens to the entire nation.
10 years. For 10 uninterrupted years, the land experienced total peace. Now, the book of 1 Kings doesn't mention this peace at all, but Chronicles highlights it 4 separate times in just one chapter. To put that into perspective, the southern kingdom of Judah was tiny. They had the northern kingdom of Israel looming above them, Edom and Egypt down to the south, and the Philistines, Moabites, and Ammonites entirely surrounding them. Getting 10 years of peace in that kind of geopolitical climate, that wasn't some lucky coincidence. It was a miraculous, divine gift. It was God's direct response to their darash, their earnest seeking.
But here is where Asa shows true leadership. How did he use this miraculous decade of peace? Did he take a 10-year vacation? No way. He engaged in peacetime construction, building fortified cities, walls, towers, gates, and bars. He recognized that peace isn't given to us for idle resting, it's given for intense preparation. He literally told the people, while the land is still ours, let's build. He organized and equipped his army. He used the quiet season to build up his defenses, fully knowing that the peace wouldn't last forever.
The ultimate test, a 1,000,000-man army. And you know what? Asa's foresight was exactly right. The 10 years of peace come to a violent, terrifying end. Suddenly, all of those physical and spiritual preparations are put to the ultimate test.
Zerah the Cushite invades Judah, and the reality Asa wakes up to is just terrifying. King Asa's army of Judah had 580,000 men, but Zerah the Cushite's army had 1 million troops. 1 million! Visually and mathematically, this is an overwhelming, basically impossible disadvantage. It's a fight they simply cannot win on paper.
But Asa doesn't panic and surrender. Facing total annihilation, he cries out to God with one of the most powerful prayers in the entire Bible. Lord, there is no one like you to help the powerless against the mighty. Help us, Lord our God. Think about this for a second. A prayer with that much faith, in a moment of absolute terror, doesn't just happen overnight. This desperate, powerful plea was made possible entirely because of the spiritual muscles Asa had been building during peacetime. You can't learn to pray like this in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane. You have to train your faith while the waters are calm.
Seeking God brings peace, and peace prepares us for victory. This entire epic battle sequence is completely omitted in 1 Kings, but it's heavily featured in 2 Chronicles. Why? Because the author wanted to drill home this core message for the returning exiles. The author was essentially telling those broken returnees, listen, you don't need the glory of the past. You don't need a massive army. If you simply seek God, if you darash, He will give you peace and He will fight your battles against impossible odds.
Building your invisible walls. Let's bridge this ancient historical narrative directly to our lives today, right now. We might not be facing a literal 1,000,000-man army, but sudden storms and crises, they hit all of us.
King Asa used his time of peace to build walls of stone and iron gates. Today, we have to use our seasons of peace to build invisible walls of spiritual discipline. Things like daily word meditation, morning prayer, and guarding our place of worship. If your life is relatively calm right now, if you have your health, if your family is stable, that is a divine gift of peace. But it's also a mandate to prepare. We build these invisible walls through these daily habits. Every single day you seek God, you are placing another stone in an invisible fortress that will protect your mind and your soul when the inevitable storms of life hit.
So what should we build during times of peace? Take a look at your own life right now. Are you in a season of peace? If so, don't just kick back and coast. What habits, what spiritual muscles, what invisible walls do you need to start constructing today so that when your crisis comes, you have the faith to stand firm? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.